Hey kids, how are you? Hope this message finds you well and healthy at home. Looks like we're going to have another month or so here in our houses. It's undetermined yet, though. But over the weekend, Dr. Anthony Fauci made a recommendation to Donald Trump, to President Trump, that President Trump listened to. We talked briefly about Dr. Fauci yesterday. You can just Google him up. I also put a couple of links to a bio of his on our website. You can go check it out there. But I think Dr. Fauci is the one that I personally choose to listen to and trust the most amongst all the people. And what's even better, though, is President Trump trusts him as well and is listening to Dr. Fauci's advice. He has a tremendous amount of experience, Dr. Fauci does, in doing exactly this and handling epidemics like this. He's also calming. He's also knowledgeable. He's to the point. So if there's somebody you want to listen to or read about, when you're curious about what's happening with this coronavirus, I would say he's the one to listen to. All right, so we're going to go back now 100 years, though, to when America finally enters World War I. What you see here are the American doughboys in France in about 1918. Now, the war started in 1914. We didn't get in for a while, and we're going to talk about that in a minute. But here you see we finally do get in on the side of the Allies, on the side of the British and the French, to try to help them knock the Germans and the Austrians back and defeat them as an enemy. But first, we're going to back up a little bit. Okay, but first, a brief review. All right, late 1800s into 1914, America had, as we discussed, an expansionist policy. We wanted to expand our influence around the world, expand beyond our borders. We had an imperialist policy. We wanted to get involved politically and militarily in these countries. And the countries that we discussed in Central and South America and in the Pacific included Cuba, Puerto Rico, Panama, Philippines, and Hawaii. So those ideas and that policy changed, however, with World War I breaking out in Europe. In 1914, we said, no, we do not want to get involved. We want to become more isolationist. We want to isolate ourselves from what was happening in Europe. President Wilson knew that America was made up of descendants of the Central Powers, Germans and Austrians, but he also knew America was made up of descendants of the English and the Irish Allied powers and the French. So he wanted to remain neutral. He didn't want to pick a side, knowing that if he picked one side, he might aggravate the other side within America. But a couple things happened that forced us and forced him really to change his mind and forced many Americans to change their mind. One was the sinking of the Lusitania. The Lusitania was a steamship that was sunk in 1915 by the Germans. They had a policy called unrestricted submarine warfare, meaning they're going to use their submarines without restriction. They were going to sink everything coming across the Atlantic, whether it was Americans' neutral ships or it was a British, naval ship. But Americans were on this ship, and that really angered Americans and upset them and started turning the tide against the Germans in America because the Germans were the ones sinking these ships. Now, the second event that really changed President Wilson's mind and really changed a lot of Americans' minds was the capturing and the translating of this coded telegram called the Zimmerman telegram. You'll see it on the right side of your screen here. But you'll see both the coded version there with the numbers and then the decoded version with the letters. Now, the British intercepted this and they shared it with us. And in the telegram, it revealed that the Germans were trying to urge the Mexicans to get into a war with America in America. And that, of course, scared and angered Americans to a great degree. What do the Germans, what do they have, what right do they have to start a war in our country? And inside the telegram, you'll see here, it specifically says it in the translated version, that the Germans are going to continue with unrestricted submarine warfare. They're going to keep blowing up whatever ship they find in the Atlantic Ocean. But at the same time, they're making Mexico a proposal or an alliance. So the Germans want to become allies with Mexico to make war together. And then their urge is in that war, they're going to help Mexico reconquer territories of Texas and New Mexico and Arizona, which we took after the Mexican-American War. So the Americans, of course, were incredibly irate at this, and this finally forced Wilson to go to war. Now, this is a back up a little bit. We are a democracy, and what you see here is that is really what Wilson said we are fighting for. He's not fighting for land or money or glory or revenge or anything else. He's fighting to save the world for democracy. And who he's fighting against is on the bottom here, you'll see autocracy. And autocracy is almost the opposite. In democracy, everyone has a voice. In democracy, one person has a voice. You don't have a voice. I don't have a voice. Just the ruler has a voice. What you see here is a Prussian helmet. It's a German helmet. And the Germans were really, the German Kaiser was really the autocratic ruler of that nation and wanted to take over all of Europe and rule it in that fashion. So that's why Wilson got into this. He said, and this is his quote to Congress, he said, "The world must be made safe for democracy." He was a peace-loving guy. He was an imperial guy. He didn't want the world to be taken over by America or run by America. However, he cherished democracy, and he explained his reason for going to war was not to win the war, not for revenge, not for money, not for land, but to make the world safe for democracy. Okay, so I've given you an assignment here today. I'm going to put it in the classroom, and it has some reading. What you see here are what Wilson said to Congress. A president can't declare war. Congress can only declare war. So the president goes. So Wilson went to Congress and said, the world must be made safe for democracy. This is my reason for going to war, he said. And he laid out his reasons why we have to now stop being neutral and go to war against the Germans. So you'll read through the document here. You'll see it here. And then there are a few questions I want you to answer in complete sentences. And at the very end, there's a summative question, a question at the end, is that just briefly summarize what happened that pulled America into the war. We already talked about that, Zimmerman, Telegram, and Lusitania. What are his goals for our fighting should be? And it's really our goal should be to make the world safe for democracy. And then why Wilson believes this fight is so important. And you'll also get that out of the reading. So anyway, stay healthy, kids. I look forward. I'll be talking to you in about a half an hour here on the Zoom call. But do the best you can with this. As always, if you have questions or comments or anything, reach out to me on the email, and I'll get back to you as soon as I can. Take care.